This is Lady Anne, owner of KPNL Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston Zeddemore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it trusting.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. TESA is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KPNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element TESA has to offer. On our website, tesacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. Hello, today is Thursday, October 28th, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, just click the $ next to your name in the comment box, and remember that all the donations go back into the mission. If you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind the scenes and extended footage on new project developments and investigations. We actually have a blooper reel in development right now. And I am having a hard time editing it because it's really funny. So just remember, just click the big blue button that says join. Our guest tonight, season 3, episode 34, is Daniel Rekshan. Daniel is a citizen science researcher on dreams and extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional contact experiences. He holds a Master's of Arts in East-West Psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies. He also has a certificate in depth hypnosis and a certificate in beyond quantum healing. You can connect with his citizen science work by going to www.exometaverse.org. You can find his dream practices at www.dreamwellbewell.com and his work with hypnosis through www.cosmicdreamhypnosis.com. A lot of positive things there. So, Daniel, put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing today? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
So disclaimer, we have met before, we have talked before, so I do know Daniel a little bit, but not as much as as we're going to get into. So we have some loaded questions prepared in advance. But before we do that, we got to get into the icebreaker from Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison, which will see you there in the chat. So we'll be right back. 1 sec. All right. So for those of you who are seeing the icebreaker for the first time, the way it works is Tim, the Demon Guy, gives me a question, and I will ask it. I'm going to open it live, and we're just going to answer it, and then we'll continue with the show. We've got surprises for us. All right. Today's question is. Okay, it's got 2 questions. Demon Guy gives you a 2-for-1. Okay. What is the scariest Halloween costume you have ever seen? And what is the scariest Halloween costume you have ever worn?
Scariest Halloween costume I've ever seen. I'm trying to remember back. The first image that comes to mind is actually those like childhood haunted houses you walk through, and they jump out, and there was a murder scene going on, like dismemberment sort of thing. Like someone was in. I knew it was fake, but that actually was terrifying to me.
Okay. What about what you've worn?
I have not actually tended towards wearing scary costumes so much in Halloween. There was one Halloween I did work on an art print of the devil image with the like goats. The goat had this like behemoth or whatever. Yeah. I worked with that one one Halloween, and that was fairly scary to me. Okay. But that was sort of working with the fear of imagery.
So for me, and then I'm just gonna curse Tim for it because he is a loaded question for me, and I guess he just wants me to admit it live on television, not live on the podcast. But the scariest costume I've ever seen would be of a clown. I do not like clowns. I hate clowns. I don't want them to be anywhere near me. And yes, I'm saying that. And what is the scariest costume I've ever worn? I don't know. I don't think I've really. I haven't really dressed up as anything too. Like last year, I dressed up as a Ghostbuster surprise. But that's about it. So thanks, Tim. Try not to make it so personal next time. All right. So let's start with as I say, why are you the way that you are? How did you get here? Where did this all start?
Thank you. Yeah, I often think about last December, actually, when I said a prayer to be of service to others in alignment with destiny, mission, and desire. My desire in that case was to work with extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional contact phenomenon through hypnosis and dream work. And I got there after studying psychology, getting these certificates in hypnosis, being fascinated by the subject, primarily because of my own experiences as a child with ET, through dreams, that sort of thing, and really sort of these lifelong phenomena that occurred. And yet part of me was pushing them away. I explored them through art a lot. But last year, I went ahead and got all these the psychology background, the hypnosis stuff, because I knew I wanted to work with ET contact, but I didn't have enough guts or coherence to go, you know what, this is it. So I ended up working a lot with flirting with going into web development, then out of it to pursue art and things like that. And I finally got to a point where I said, you know what, it's silly to pretend I want to do anything else besides work in the field of ET contact through dreams hypnosis, and the citizen science actually was part of it. So That was last December. I made that decision, and since then, got connected with an emerging nonprofit, the Exo Metaverse. We're doing citizen science, and that's why I'm here, because Ryan and I met through that context of collaborating on reporting systems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I made a couple notes there too. So December, December is an interesting month for me. December is the month in which I guess contact was made, in a sense, to create Tessa. So Tessa's birthday is in December. I've made decisions in December. It could be the year end. Could be, was it like any New Year's resolution kind of talk going on, or did you have some like metaphysical like connection that was just like, you got to do this?
It was sort of like, you got to do this. I ended up working. So I had this pattern. I received 8 years ago or whatever. I received sort of downloads right through this whole bizarre situation that it first expressed itself through art, but then expressed itself through a vision of a dream database, citizen science platform. So I had been working on that for like years, really off and on, and going into professional work as a web developer, and then back going, you know what, I'm going to do art, hypnosis, and focus on the citizen science thing, but not all the way. I never fully jumped in, let's say. So then this last December, I was in the last iteration of that process and I was working for a venture funded startup. It was a very crystallized experience. It was so obvious to me that I would not be happy there. And it was like so obvious to me that these patterns were expressing themselves yet again. And if you've ever had a kind of pattern that is surrounding a kind of psychological complex, like you just can't get through it. You're like, not again, not this person again. Right. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to solve that for myself here and now. And that was really it. Yeah.
Cool. That's good. So tell me about this, if you don't mind, this ET that you saw as a child. What did it look like?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily an ET I saw. I still don't have physical 3D conscious memory, as you might say. What I do have is memories of being 4 years old and seeing the thing that I track memories about memories, and like the experience and what I talked about. So for example, when I was 4 years old, I was terrified of the closet, and there's these sort of beings that I was scared of, vampires that came through, and they were bald with like little heads, and like, it was like classic gray imagery interpreted as
these came out of the closet.
Top of the closet. And I don't actually, I remember pulling the blanket above my head, looking up, being scared of it, thinking if I could just shut the door. And at the time, I didn't think of it as a child so much, or wasn't reflective about it. You tell your parents, you're like, oh, well, these are nightmares, these are fears, that sort of thing.
Did the vampire have like a cloak or a robe or anything on? Any clothing?
None that I remember. And again, the memories I'm accessing are sort of imaginal at this point, right? So
there's this trend in the research that I've done so far in the last 2 years of closets being seem to be the location of where entities are being seen, and there's these cloaks. That's why I was asking that, because you mentioned some buzzwords there, and I was like, it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The next closest memory I have around that time, I have experience of like 4 years old, 14, and then 19 that I've really sort of tracked around. Primarily, initially as symptoms of what might look like alien abduction. When I was 15, I became obsessed basically, and like went through. There's checklists like, do you dream of UFOs? Do you think about ETs? Do you suspect you were like all these questions? So I use those to explore these memories, these experiences, and the one I'm speaking about, when I was 4, I remember looking out of my bed into the front yard of my house, and I noticed something coming up towards it, And I remember looking at it and there's being a sort of shimmery quality to it, and going like, what is that? What is that? And it shifting and like not really coming into coherence until I go, you know what? It's Easter time. That
Mhm.
must be the Easter bunny. And then there was all of a sudden this sort of like shifting to like, yeah, that's definitely the Easter bunny. My mind was like, yes, that's the Easter bunny. And so all of a sudden that image came forward. And I told everyone I saw the Easter bunny. I since then I spoke to my like family about it, and I'm like, do you remember I was talking about the Easter bunny? My brother, actually, a twin brother, who's been helpful in figuring out these memories, is like, he says like, yeah, I remember you talked about it. We thought it, you were like, thought it was so funny that you made that up and were so insistent, right? So it's like it
Mhm.
was out of character for me to make it up, and also out of character for me to be.
So that was you rationally trying to understand what you may have seen.
Yes.
So is there any belief behind that? Do you believe that it's a dream, or do you believe it was real, like an actual dimension or something interdimension, I suppose?
Yeah, I right now my hypothesis, right? Like these are all hypotheses. My intuition around that is yes, indeed, it was a extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional being approaching the house to have some sort of contact. Same thing with the vampires from the closet, which in since then I've done regression work and like dream work around that, and have found much more peace around. I have peace around that sort of thing. I'm not scared of them like vampires or evil grays coming to
Now,
the
yeah, because well, these are labels too that the archetypes that we apply. So
yeah.
the vampire, I mean, I guess did it have fangs? I suppose. Then, like, what would be the identifier for you to call it a vampire?
Yeah, and so that only comes about because of the Count on Sesame Street. He was
Okay.
the close. He was the only pale thing that had the face
Yeah.
shape that I saw actually, and
That's
so
interesting. I had someone describe what looked like Grover from the Sesame Street, and it was the only thing I could find that like made sense to what they were describing. But I was like, it couldn't be, it couldn't be. I guess it's not a Muppet; it's something different, right? A puppet, And but the thing is when I did some research and I go to how old they were, and it turns out that Sesame Street started that year or a year prior to that, and it was like kind of like around the time that Grover debuted on television. So the circumstantial evidence kind of showed, that maybe he saw that creature for the first time and no one's ever seen it, and then it just scared the hell out of him, and then he had nightmares.
yeah.
Again, like we don't know. I wasn't there, but so I just find it. I just thought I'd comment on that because a lot of the stuff when we're kids, we go back to the clowns. The reason why I don't like clowns is that something happened to me when I was a kid, and I still don't like it. I don't dream about clowns today. When a clown ever shows up, I'm telling you, Tim, I will knock you on your ass if you do anything. Anyways, so yeah, so okay, cool. Then what happened?
Then I don't actually remember any major other contact phenomena until I was 14 or so. I suspect there was something. There was I was a sensitive kid, that sort of thing. When I was 14, I don't actually have any specific memories, but that's when the obsession started. So that's where that I like literally I built my first website about ETs. I scoured the internet. I'm still doing that sort of stuff, scouring the internet and bringing it together. So
Dangerous game. That's a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, I had it up on like GeoCities, and so I studied a lot of that. I had a large and so I kept looking at those alien abduction symptomologies and being like, something must have happened. And I remember just going like, something must have happened. I know something happened. Something happened. Something happened. I remember being in the like bathroom of my house and looking in the mirror. And after having examined my whole body for marks, actually, I was like, I need evidence. I need evidence that something has happened to me because I know something happened. And I got to the point where it's like, there's absolutely no evidence, physically or otherwise, that I can see. And so I'm going to set it out of my head and not consider myself someone who has had those experiences. I'm just interested, something like that. Yeah.
Well, you could be. Depends on how we look at it. I mean, we can't. We got to see what's in the mind, right? How do we document? Uh, how do we document it that way? So it depends on what you're trying to do and your goals. So what I'm hearing, and this is fascinating, is that you're self-diagnosing in a sense in a phenomenon that is a pseudo phenomenon, a pseudoscience. That now you keep mentioning these symptoms and these categories or these markers. Where are you getting this list that tells you that you may or may not be a contactee? And from that list, how do you know that that list is a credible list of markers to use?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I think where I got that must have been the internet or the public library, right? Like my high school library. In terms of whether or not it's credible, at that time, it's just, I was 14. I like didn't have 15, whatever. I didn't have enough sophistication to look into that. I was like, these are experts. Clearly they know what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah, there's been studies for many years, and that's how we get the information, because
Yeah.
they study and they do the science, and then they create these categories and then and these markers. And for you, finding that after the fact, there's validation there because you didn't write it, you just found it, and then you started to resonate with it. It started to make sense. A lot of the a couple of weeks ago we were talking about star children or star seeds. There's a lot of self-help kind of surveys and stuff that you can do to kind of identify yourself in that sense. But it's along the whole lines of, like, do you feel like you don't belong here? Do you feel like you should be on another planet? Or do you feel like you're from this and all these other things? But like with today's like push for answers and exploring space and stuff like that, do you think any of that is subject to influence with these, if you were to do that survey today?
Like if I were to do that survey today and like look at it and think about it, if I were to do that survey, I actually, in terms of talking to people and looking at my own life, I believe firmly in the ET presence here. I believe in starseeds. I believe in all of these things. And I actually do believe that the psychic phenomena is more relevant than the objective evidential phenomena. And so that's like an interesting paradox to be in doing citizen science, because I'm like, consciousness primary, right? The psychic stuff, right? So yeah. I've been picking up on, it's like, was this real? Was this not? Where's the evidence for these experiences? And it's like I said, it's like there's no evidence for any of my experiences as.
There is evidence. It's a type of evidence. So what you have is testimonial evidence. And when you get that from another person, that is testimonial evidence. If you hear from another person about another person who was abducted, that's hearsay, but it's still a form of evidence. So there's levels of evidence. So you do have evidence. It's just a matter of whether or not that piece of evidence is substantial enough to prove a hypothesis. So what hypothesis, what are you trying to prove for yourself? If you're trying to prove that you have contact, if you have this evidence, why don't you use that? Why don't you believe that evidence and just be?
Exactly. So that's what I was looking for when I was a teenager. And that's where I got to the point where it's like, I don't actually have the evidence to prove that I was physically abducted. So I had this mental image that ETs were like these little gray beings, and they lived in flying saucers, and they flew and beamed you up and did things to you physically. They took your body physically. That's the evidence I was looking for. And it turns out there's no evidence in my life for that level of interaction, except for, the testimony. My father saw a UFO. He talked about it to everyone, till everyone said, hey, watch out. You'll lose your law career on this. So don't do that. Right. So chill it out. Don't share this information, that sort of thing. But now my hypothesis is actually that ED phenomena, that contact phenomena, reveals a deeper reality that we experience through things like dreams, Again, hypnosis, that sort of thing, gives us access to it, the
So-
channeled realms, whatever.
We're not physically going. That's why there's no evidence, but we're mentally going, or they're mentally coming.
Well, a little bit of everything, actually. That's the thing. That's where I stand is like, I actually, as a hypnosis practitioner, I go, I don't know. I'm not going to make those judgments. I go, everything that's possible that can happen is happening in terms of that.
So let's dive into the citizen science. So we've mentioned that word several times. I resonate with the term citizen journalist, and the reason why I use citizen journalist is simply because I did not go to school for journalism. I do not have the credentials that would allow me to work for media or press. However, being a private investigator, I possess the tools and that a journalist has, and I'm able to do all those things. But because I don't have that degree, it limits my, I guess, where I can play. So in terms of citizen science, how similar is that? I mean, don't say, but explain and how that relates to what you're doing and any struggles with that.
Yeah, so the citizen science is, any effort of science that is put forward by citizens. Oftentimes it's defined as a collaboration by professional scientists and citizens, and examples of that are like bird counting. Like bird scientists will ask citizens to, hey, count the birds in your neighborhood. Same thing with a Galaxy Zoo project. The Hubble Space Telescope had a bunch of photos of galaxies, and the citizens classified this. In this case, citizen science, particularly with the UFO ET contact field, I think is immensely important, because I believe actually that the professional scientists and the community of academia is institutionally, let's say, slowing down or adding friction to the study of these things, and I see that through a variety of means, particularly systematic ridicule of experiencers and it's not possible, that sort of thing. The actually systematic discounting of testimony, and we see this in like dreams too. Is people go like, oh, it was just a dream. Like that sort of.
Yeah, but that's an all statement. Like you can't say that it's just a dream unless you know it's a dream. So even the academics who are smarter than us, say silly things that don't even make sense.
Yeah. So so in terms of the citizen science, and I see a lot of potential in that, is bringing the capacities to measure, to report, to come to conclusions about these things through the work of other people. And one of the most compelling things for me is looking out to see how many, just the raw numbers of how many people are resonating with these fields. So you can get to that information at exometaverse.org. We have counts going on about the social media following of people who talk about these things. But even more, I mean, one of my own personal experiences was when I was 19 or 20, trying to figure this stuff out, was going on the internet, going through all the bazillion forums there were, and then I started counting how many there are, right? What are these experiences people are sharing on the internet because they find it meaningful, that sort of thing. And so really looking to the citizens as a means of, and that's just a term for everyday person who is engaged in this, really. Is they also it's that they've got a vested interest in understanding this. They have the testimony, and they might not even there's no systematic setup to make them fail in this study, basically. And so I see this as important.
So how does one citizen, in that aspect, journalism or science, or both, get the academic to accept the research and the science or the facts from the citizen? How do we get them to accept that in their work and present it without saying you didn't do that, and or without ripping it apart, or throwing it out simply because you didn't achieve or click or check enough boxes to earn the status in which they claim to be at this time. What do you think?
Yeah, I would actually propose we throw out those academics. It's just like straight up. I mean,
Grab your pitchforks. Let's go.
Well, we can use the gentle force of time in society in terms of how science unfolds is often similar to this. Thomas Kuhn in his famous the structure of scientific revolutions is just like he says like there's always going to be people that believe in the old theories, and oftentimes science progresses when those people die. And I'm not proposing anything nefarious here. I'm just saying let's wait and work with the people who will listen.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. To put it in simple terms, I'm just continuing where Hynek and John Keel had left off when they died. I'm doing the same thing they did, but I don't have those. I'm using their work, I'm using their tools, I'm using their methods, but because I'm not them or I didn't achieve that way of life, it's taboo.
Yep.
So, okay, yeah, I would love to get rid of the academics, but we need them. So because they control, they're in the world, they're the message, they're the medium. It's kind of like, book smarts versus street smarts, and some street smart people are a lot smarter than the book smart people, depending on when you need it. So aces in places. You'll also get informants in the police world or investigative world. You get someone who's on the inside who understands those things. So in this newly opened realm of this phenomenon, and now coming out in the public with UFOs and things like that, do you think it would ever be possible in our lifetime for them to scoop up a citizen like ourselves to, help them figure out what's going on when they have a specific type of standards and regulations that they need to follow, because we're thinking outside the box?
Yeah, what I see in the future is these phenomena are really increasing in terms of at least the reporting on it and the ability to do experiments through such things as CE5, through if you can invoke these phenomena and they happen, and you can measure them and record them. So at a certain point, that the weight of that evidence, right, and testimony of everyone who's sharing this, your work included, will shift the public perception. I believe enough that I think there is a mechanism in terms of how people are ready to receive this information and contact.
The audience that's watching us, the cultures, the circles that we're in, we all get it. We're all in that boat, but it's the disclosure that we want to get. So they're aware of us, they don't use us, but they also can, I don't know, for me, I feel like we're the experiment. Maybe they do know and they want us to figure it out, and then that way, if it doesn't work because we don't have all this stuff, they can use that to say in case we took it too far, all of a sudden we're crackpots, or all of a sudden we're diagnosed with a mental illness that doesn't exist, and because of that we're not credible. We're kind of we're pushing an envelope here, and without any protection, without any boundaries, without knowing the boundaries, mind you. So how do you sleep at night? How do you you're not worried that you might just unlock the code and be in possession of the answers?
Oh, I sometimes sleep well at night. Last night we had an interesting experience at 1:44. My wife woke up and was like the printer turned on, and then she heard someone walk up the steps or whatever, and I was like, "There's no one else is here." I wasn't scared, you can sense those things, but I did check the house. So I sleep that way sometimes. And we also experience a lot of, the more I get into it, actually, the more I study it, the more active that sort of dream communication and at nighttime sort of contact experience unfolds. In terms of, you had a different kind of, how do you sleep at night, actually, edge to that question. And
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, wouldn't you be concerned if we knew the answers that the government might also have, but they're just not divulging it? Like I mean, do they like? Where are you on that fence? Do they know and they're not telling us, and we're figuring out we're on the same lines, or do they just not know? They don't have time to look into it, and then people like us are solving it, and yet they're just not interested in it. Like, so where do you think the government really is in terms of the phenomenon?
I think there are many different aspects of what in entities associated with what we call the government. I think the everyday person in the bureaucracies have no idea what's going on. I think they're just like us, just like other people. We don't know. They would be very helpful, happy for us to figure this out. I think there are other elements within the military-industrial complex that have had obvious agendas, right? That come forward that's where the smear campaigns come, or that's where the rails of science are defined is by these entities that we don't really know who they are, right? They're kind of shadowy. They're the source of all the conspiracy theories, right? And they may or may not want us to be doing this work. However, in terms of my ever since I got my certificate in hypnosis and stuff like that, I've been kind of doing that sort of like run at the end of a cliff sort of thing, like, is now the time, and I would sense out and I'd be afraid. It's like, oh my god, like if I start working with hypnosis and figuring out missing time, will the men in black come and get me or whatever? Like, and so I had to work through all those fears recently, and energetically I opened myself up to look at the world, and I think it's changed actually energetically. I don't think those aspects of those military industrial complex have as much power as we once believed they did.
Well, there's a lot of missing information. Like, a lot of us are speculating. There's a lot of reasons why we don't trust the government. There's a lot of reasons why we should trust the government. There's a lot of, I mean, I like what you said, that maybe they just don't know because they're human too. Maybe it just is it's normal, and we don't know till we die. Like, it just might be that simple. And what we tap into, where we go to in a dream state consciousness, we don't know exactly who or what or where we're connecting to. It just is. It's just so complex. So let's get into hypnosis, because I got a question here from one of our members, Chantal. She says, "What is the difference between deep guided meditation and hypnosis in terms of brain activity?"
Okay, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I actually am not a neuroscientist, nor do I have the like
a citizen neuroscientist.
That's what.
Can you be a citizen neuroscientist?
Well, actually, there's like there's the EEG bands and things like that can measure it. So the in terms of the activity, in terms of deep guided meditation and hypnosis, even from a level of practice, it's kind of similar. And it really, speaking about hypnosis, that is the term that needs a lot of disambiguation, because there is a sense of someone leading an experience, right? You can do self-hypnosis. A lot of people say everything is self-hypnosis. Same thing with guided meditation. In terms of my actual practice, the words hypnosis and deep guided meditation are more or less synonymous. So it depends on the audience I'm speaking to as to what we're doing. I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. I'm just trying to think how I would answer that too. Like, we got to study the brain. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's studies on both sides, and that's for the maybe we need the academics after all, or something like that. Okay, all right. So let's get into. Well, you want to talk about dreams. So dreams is kind of like your take home. This is where you're focused. This is where you're really studying. Talk about your work. Like, how are you studying this? What how does it work?
I'm fascinated by dreams. That's so that and a lot of my contact in my teenage years came from dreams. I had very real, and we would call them hyper real experiences, right? Like they're like you go to, you break out of this world, and there are like these beings that are like super super intense, and they're like, and they're like, this is the nature of reality or whatever, and then they're like, go back to your body, like that kind of thing unfolding, or like
You've seen that? That's happened to you?
yeah, I
Okay.
just like went to the foundations of space and time. That's how I did a lot of my philosophy in undergrad. I went back to the memory of the foundations of space and time. It was fairly intense, and it's I drew pictures of it. There's a lot of like oscillations and stuff like that, and kaleidoscopic colors, and these sort of vast beings. That said, so those sorts of experiences in my life have led up to an interest in dreams. So one of the most potent experiences I had in dreams was something like an out-of-body experience where I saw my grandfather pass over to the other side, actually, and it was unexpected. I had no idea. I was like writing down the experience. My mom called. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So there was that was a moment where I said, aha, there's something objective that happened here, which is my grandfather died. Subjectively, I had the dreamlike experience of being guided by these archetypal kind of almost Egyptian deity-like beings to see this spirit pass over to the other side, simultaneously with my grandfather actually dying, right? Like, so it's like that synchronicity is impossible to ignore. And I go, oh, something real is here. I spent years trying to figure that out, like how to work with that, how to encourage dreams. And so the way I work with dreams now is like threefold, actually. One is through direct with hypnosis. We do a lot of dream work. Whenever I work with someone, I ask them about their dreams. We look at life as a dream, and that's a really important kind of like, well, life is a dream in a sense. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is through the citizen science work of bringing together dreams and doing quantitative analysis on them. And this is like a Sisyphean effort almost, because I've brought together data. No one cares about it. I've shifted into other work. I've been inspired again. So everything's coming together actually in the Exo Metaverse project, and we are rebranding that into something that's not metaverse oriented because of the connection with like Facebook or whatever as metaverse.
Oh, right.
That'll come. Well, we have a cooler name coming up, and so I look at dreams like that, and then third way is actually dreams as contact phenomena. And so this is something that's new and emergent. This is one of the reasons why I was excited to talk about dreams and hypnosis as testimony.
Yeah.
Primarily because I was asked to write a chapter of Ray Hernandez's Greater Reality book on lucid dreams as a contact modality. I did a literature review on that, discovered like, wow, it's fascinating that actually contact does seem to happen in dreams a lot, and you can like sort of if you're anywhere close to skilled at lucid dreaming, or anywhere even just interested in it, if you express the intention to have a lucid contact, it like happens at a rate that's just like astronomical compared to other lucid intent, like flying or like sleeping with beautiful people. Like if compared to that, in like I want to contact extraterrestrial civilizations in my dreams, like that the content, the actual response of the dream content, at least in the small sample sizes that are presented in the study, it shows there's an astronomical difference. We need to get to the state where we can have those experiments at a scale of hundreds of thousands of people. And then at that level, right, we've got hundreds of thousands of people practicing dream incubation that brings in perhaps actually real contact with extraterrestrials in a good way. Right, like that's really compelling evidence, and you've got 100,000 people that have participated in that study, and so yeah, this is meaningful. If you do that with
100,000 of people that are inducing a sleep-like state to tap into the mind and to reach the same, like traveling in this sandbox Like, how do you focus that many people to the same entity?
Yeah, so I mean, they in the study that I read, they invite people to just contact extraterrestrial civilization, right? So it's sort of like, which one is there? Well, whoever responds, right? And that's probably not the best protocol for us as a human family to engage in. It's probably much better protocol to specify the request to kind beings that respect our free wills, that will not do us harm, that sort of thing. And that's the insight that dream incubation, at least with lucid dream and in contact with the stranger phenomena, is like when you express intent, actually the dreams do respond and respect that most of the time. So,
is any of that imagination though? If you're like you are intentionally trying to, get a desired result, would you not imagine yourself seeing what you think would appear to be a positive and friendly being based on, what you've seen growing up? Like, is it like how do you trust that?
so this is the question. This is the heart of the question. I think everybody needs to answer this for themselves a little bit, and I think we need a much larger dialogue about the role of imagination in contact phenomena. So as I say, as someone that's been looking at this for a long time, I go like, I don't know if it's different than imagination, but I don't actually know that imagined contact like is less real. And I say this through the mystery of time. Like I go like, what if we imagine these things and somehow through percolations, right? Like everyone's talking about reptilians or greys, right? Like these archetypal imagery, right? But it's when they start in the 60s, right? Like we have other imagery that kind of relates to the ETs from a long time ago. But these like grays and these sort of like Ashtar Command or whatever, like all these sort of imagery come up, and that feels very imaginative to the cultural situation of the 60s and 70s or 80s, right? So are they imagining it? But lo and behold, other people go ahead and have these very real experiences with these things that seem very imagined at the time and seem sort of conveniently imagined. But they swear by them, and it's like I go like, what it this is an open question. I don't know if the power of the human imagination through the mysteries of space-time as expressed through these multidimensional vehicles, like what if they are bringing it? What if something like that is happening? I don't know.
Well, then you have 100,000 people with different diets, different mental capabilities, mental illnesses. Maybe some might get in the way. Like there's a lot of variables. So like for me, like one of your questions that we talked about before is like how do we make this evidence? And like I faced that challenge too, because a lot of our experiencers. That's how it happens. That's where it's coming from. No one is able to take a picture. No one's able to have a video. That's just what the nuts and bolts scientists want to have, because it's something they can measure, put in their hands. And there are people that aren't crazy, and they're seeing these things and then all these other stuff. So even I can't explain definitively what is going on. All I can do is measure. So to answer that question that you asked, like that, just so you guys know, he asked me this question before we started, and I wanted to lead into the topic so I could answer it for him. But I'm still trying to solve it. So the only thing that I can trust with all those variables, with all those possibilities, with all those unknown constants that exist and don't exist without me divulging into the personal history, because I want to believe the experiencer. I don't want to ask if they have a mental illness, because I'm not sure if that implies that I think the mental illness is the cause of it. I don't want them thinking that, but I also curious enough to know that maybe that particular illness has nothing to do with the phenomenon. I like to also rule it out to kind of reinforce the fact that that is just a stigma. It's not that. But so the only thing I'm really comfortable with is measuring the people and their makeup and their why they are the way that they are. So eye color, something that's constant, that's universal. Blood type, we all share blood, we all have eye colors, we all have what else is there that doesn't really interchange, like, so all those markers too. Then the senses, what did you taste, what did you smell, what did you hear, I measure, what did you see? So we get into the art part of it, right? So the drawings of it is also a type of evidence, is analogical evidence. The testimony is testimonial evidence. Testimony on its own is not as good as a drawing, so analogical is better. Testimonial and a drawing is better. And then you have direct evidence, which would be a photograph or a picture or a document confirming. So there's different types of evidence. So the best would be to have, a testimony, and then you investigate, you get a drawing, and then you find a picture that looks like that. But when you measure it all, so for us, because I go through that step with each experiencer, and I categorize it. So if it happens to be a method, that's the other thing I'm measuring, is the method. How did you make contact? So sometimes it says dream. It's not just a dream. It's did you intentionally make contact, or did you unintentionally make contact? Because sometimes when you're dreaming, you have nightmares, but they're not nightmares. There might be contact experiences that are frightening. Or if you do lucid dreaming and you intentionally put that out there, then you make contact. So these are different methods. What I'm comfortable with in that respect is that different people must have different ways to connect to the same place. And once they're able, so what I can prove right now is that we can connect to whatever this is. And because we can connect to this, we're seeing a variance of different things, and it's interpreted in many different ways. So when I have more data over time, when I have more drawings and I start to see people drawing the same things, because those are visuals, right? Then we can look at where they are in the world, the time they were in the world, and then start to ask questions and correlate all that evidence together and be like, how did this person in USA in 1973 draw the exact same thing that this person saw yesterday here in Canada? I know that they don't know each other because of the way we do our research and keep them distant from each other, but do the process the same. So they're tapping into the same. This person's able to reach consciousness through meditation. This person reached consciousness through dreaming, but they both drew the same thing. So this to me would suggest that however they got there, that's a method, but they got to the same place, and that place exists. And then we can deeper dive into intent and motive and whatever. Some people talk, some people do this. So it's like a very elaborate game of guess who. Eventually one person is going to remember, doesn't see the face, but they remember the body. Another person remembers the body but doesn't see the face, but then you put them together, you got a face on the body. So there's bits and pieces of evidence. So like similar to like a crime scene investigation, when anything happens, you talk to all the witnesses, you get their statements, and then you rule it all out and you put it all together, and you actually have an understanding of what really happened. So that's the only way that makes sense to me, that you could accept that dream state as being a conduit or a point of making contact to the other side, because we know it exists. We just don't know what it is, where it is, or when it is. And that's something that we can figure out later. We don't need to know all those answers right now. Once we figure that out, then we can give that stuff to the scientists, the academics, and say, here's a bunch of data focused on this. You're a specialist on this. What do you think this is? But in the mix of all this stuff, we have these archetypical labels. Some will call it a download. So for me, my experience, download would be what I would call it. And some people will call it astral travel when they project out of, so there's different terms to describe going or receiving, transmitting the computer, the device. So dreams can be used, if the information is collected in an objective way. It is measured the same way, and it's stacked on top of different layers of evidence that's been verified and validated. But you as a single person couldn't do that alone, because then someone like me or anybody else could be like, I didn't do it, or I have to analyze it, and I project my different opinions and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And therefore, if I'm subjective enough to, or have enough intention to lead a certain way, be biased on a certain belief, and I'm going to be looking for things to disprove or prove depending on what it is we're looking for. So the challenge we have is, how do we objectively investigate and then objectively provide opinion, and then put that out to a world that's full of opinion and speculation and emotion? You follow me?
I do follow you, and I unfortunately will say, I don't know if it's possible objectively. Unfortunately, I do know it's possible at a non-dual level to engage actually means of knowledge that are meaningful to an individual and collective. But I don't think actually it can happen objectively. And one of the sort of intuitions I have around the citizen science and why it's so important is, even though we have this guise of, or like this understanding that we need some sort of objective evidence or something, or like we need an authority figure, and that perhaps we can help collect all this data right together through dreaming by inviting self-observation. The practice actually of dreaming in a citizen science way, so this is the practice of dreaming, to explore the world, explore yourself, and like write it down. So through the practice of dream journaling, that is a journey you're going on as a researcher. So as opposed to necessarily, I mean, there's a couple levels of this, I think, and I think it would be really beautiful if, those researchers who are the objective scientists or the academicians participate as well. I mean, I think that's where I would.
Well, that's the challenge where they get frustrated, is they can't do their part unless we at this end give them something solid enough to work with. So if we give them data that's trusted, that's focused and narrowed in within their field of study, then they can be an expert at that time. We do need experts, just not now. We don't need it at this level. We have experts trying to measure without any data, so they can't weigh in if it hasn't been collected. So that's where the citizen part comes in, and then once we have that, we present it to them, and then do they take it seriously? Well, they must, if we do it right, and they analyze it and they check it, and they're like, hey, you're onto something. Similar to when we had a conversation, I was explaining to you how I've been doing things and how I'm always blah blah blah, and I explained to you my process, and it was you who told me that you would consider me to be a citizen scientist based on the methods and the approach that I've done. But I mean, that's because it was relatable. I'm now learning now that you are a citizen scientist yourself, but I didn't know that at the time we were having that conversation. So there's that association, that group part of layers. So once we understand all the moving parts in it, we could, at this level, collect the information, firm the data up with a common goal, as we talked about in that meeting too, about possibly us assisting you and your team regulating all of the investigative cases that come in from all over the world, setting that regulated standard with our ultraspectrum. So that's something huge we were talking about. We don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does happen, that would really, really help solve this problem, because everyone can just give the information the way that they know, and we can work together and regulate it. And then, what we have to do moving forward is get like you mentioned, Ray Hernandez, get a bunch of our experts to weigh in on this data, who trust us that we've provided them the data, and then they carry that with us. So with them. So we don't necessarily need to appease every academic. We just need one, and one in the field that trusts in the work and understands that we're doing what everything else needs to be done before they look at it under the on the microscope. Because the scientists don't go out and get the sample and do all that other stuff. Like in the forensic world, they collect the sample, they bring it to they call the CSI in, they get the sample, they do their test, and then they give it back to us, and then we do the report based on them. So it's a similar way. We don't have a team like that in this pseudoscience. at least that I'm aware of, and or at least maybe we haven't had any police-related regulated system, which is what I'm trying to create. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that system arise. In one of the questions I have are like the knowing how, with my experience with dreams and working with other people collecting the dreams and things like that. The understanding I have is there's something like the observer principle happening. So there's, in terms of me working with hypnosis people who have missing time and want to understand these things, I have to say I'm like the